So, friends, welcome to this side event of the 57th United Nations Statistics Commission entitled Statistics for Policy Action, Accelerating Multidimensional Poverty Reduction by 2030 and beyond. I'm grateful for your coming out in the sleet and the rain and considering poverty during the lunch hour. And we are grateful to the Economic Commission of Africa and its chief statistician, who will be our host, and to the Rockefeller Foundation for offering this space. Our event focuses on multidimensional poverty indices, or MPIs, which directly show the interconnectedness across deprivations faced by poor people. At present, over 55 countries have MPIs as official national statistics, and 5 countries have pilots, and about 20 countries have their first MPI in progress. Our question is, in a time of great turbulence in the world and in the world of development, finance, and assistance, poverty remains the greatest global challenge. And so how can statisticians support and communicate national MPIs to build evidence-based policies that actually accelerate the reduction of poverty, so that are communicated to, engaged with, and used by people who are not statisticians? And to discuss these matters, we have a great treat before us, a punctual burst of information on how multidimensional poverty indices are being designed, how they're disaggregated and used in action for policies and poverty reduction activities. And for those of you who are here for the first time, you'll leave with many examples from different countries as speakers. And you will also learn about a South-South network, the Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network, that has 89 participating countries and international institutions. And if you wish to participate formally and are not currently doing so, you might have a word with us. To the speakers, I'm grateful for your being here, and I request brevity as well as passion. The timekeeper, Annim Morales, who is the interim director of the MPPN, will ring a bell at 3 minutes and 2 bells at 4 minutes when the interventions are to pause. And in the spirit of peer learning, we hope that everybody here, from whatever institutions you are, will hear some innovations that might trigger our own thoughts. Before we move forward, I just want to recognize that the agenda will change slightly, and I'm delighted to welcome Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti, the director of BPS, the Department of Statistics, or NSO, in Indonesia. It's a joy to have Her Excellency with us, and she will be presenting on that behalf. And we are also delighted to have Tamar Amin from Katmas in Egypt. So welcome to both of the speakers. I apologize that they are not on the agenda, but they will have the dice. So to initiate our substantive presentations, I'm really delighted to call on Mohd Uzir Mahidin from Malaysia's DOSM, the Department of Statistics Malaysia. As you know, he is an international actor, having convened the ISI in Malaysia, having taken many prominent positions in the statistics community. But you may not know that he also has a leadership role in multidimensional poverty. Malaysia was one of the first countries to adopt. It is now revising, and it is certainly a very rigorous and careful and advanced statistical body. So we look forward very much to your inputs. You have the floor.
Thank you, Prof. Sabina. Ladies and gentlemen, my slide. And Malaysia journey with the multidimensional poverty index reflect our commitment to a development approach that is people-centered, evidence-based, and aligned with global standards. Allow me to share our experience, our insight, and our direction forward. So this outline of my presentation. Malaysia began developing its MPI more than a decade ago, as mentioned by Sabrina just now. Guided by the UNDP and the Alkai Foster methodology, Malaysia MPI is aligned with national development priorities and support monitoring of the SDG, particularly Goal 1 on poverty, while remaining consistent with the United Nations framework. Today, our national MPI is built on three equally weighted dimensions: education, health, and living standard, supported by 10 indicators that reflect the life realities of households. This framework is consistent with the direction set in the 12th Malaysia Plan to strengthen multidimensional poverty measurement and improve the targeting of social assistance. Using data from our latest household income, expenditure, and basic amenity survey, we have observed consistent improvement. The incidence of multidimensionally poor household declined from 1.63% in 2019 to 0.65% in 2034, and the national MPI fell from 0.0065 to 0.0025. Deprivation has decreased across most indicators, particularly access to healthcare, sanitation, and communication facilities. This improvement reflects not only better living conditions, but also the impact of sustained investment in essential services. The MPI has become a strategic tool for cross-sectoral planning and budget allocation. Ministry use MPI data to prioritize investment in health facilities, water supply, digital access, and rural mobility. This whole of government approach is consistent with economy Madani, which emphasizes data-driven governance, social progress beyond GDP, and improving the quality of life for all Malaysians. MPR helps us identify who is being left behind and guide the design of more effective evidence-based poverty reduction policies. At the same time, the MPI highlights persistent regional disparity. States such as Kelantan, Sabah, and Sarawak record MPI score above the national average and higher deprivation across all indicators. It's aligned with Malaysia national priority under Malaysia Plan, 12 Malaysia Plan, and the policy direction shaping the 13 Malaysian Plan to reduce regional inequality and strengthen where they are most needed. The key takeaways, the MPIs have become a strategic tool for cross-sectoral planning, program design, and budget allocation. Ministry use MPI data to prioritize investment in health facility, water supply, digital access, and rural mobility. This whole government approach is consistent with economy Madani, which emphasize data-driven governance, social progress beyond GDP, and improving the quality of life for all Malaysians. Here, the MPI play a critical role is identify which deprivation matter most, it shows where intervention will have the greatest impact, and it ensures that policy outcomes are measurable, targeted, and equitable. In short, the MPI is not just a statistic, it's a policy engine that guides Malaysia poverty reduction strategy. And way forward, Malaysia is advancing to the next phase of MPI development in collaboration with UNDP and also Poverty and Human Development Initiative. We are reviewing and refining our national MPI to better reflect emerging needs. This includes strengthening indicators, exploring new dimensions, and integrating emergency data and just partial information to move toward more granular individual level Malaysia analysis. These efforts support the transformation of Malaysia's national statistical system and ensure that our poverty diagnostic remain robust, timely, and internationally aligned. As many countries move toward establishing national MPI, Malaysia remains committed to contributing to the global statistical community. Our goal is clear: to ensure that poverty measurement continues to inform national strategies, guide resource allocation, and support the expansion of the Malaysia Plan for a more inclusive, equitable, and resilient society. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a replete presentation. Malaysia has the history, it has the rigor, it has the alignment with the National Development Plan, its use for planning and for budgeting, the whole of government approach, the disaggregations to show disparities. And so we are very, very grateful for that overview. And I'm delighted now to welcome our esteemed host, Samuel Kobina Annim, the Director of Africa Center for Statistics in UNECA, who is one of the most profound and committed and innovative statisticians, in my view, who is working on MPI and its data needs and its links to policy. And Samuel, we look forward to your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Sabina.
Can you speak very close?
Colleagues, good afternoon, and my apologies for joining late. I was still struggling to find my way around the New York City. Sabina, thank you very much for those warm words. Colleagues, as Sabina indicated, my previous role was with the National Statistical Office in Ghana, where I was privy to the global MPI and the national MPI. And currently in my role as the director for the Africa Center for Statistics, I'm trying to bring a broader perspective to the global multidimensional poverty index, as well as the national multidimensional index. There are three things that I want to draw our attention to. I'm very much aware that this meeting is focusing on the policy action, but you would agree with me that the conversation around the policy action is much more related to how the MPI is relatable to the public and also is relatable to the policymaker. So I'm hoping that the conversation here will draw our attention on, in as much as the National Multidimensional Poverty Index is not comparable across countries, the conversation would focus on how within countries the National Multidimensional Poverty Index can be compared over time. Over the period in Ghana, I realized that including Ghana and other countries on the African continent, there has been the temptation to change both the domains and the indicators for the computation of the multidimensional poverty index. So yes, you cannot compare across countries, but once you have changes over time, it compromises the comparability within countries as well. The second issue that I want to highlight, which Sabina, I've brought to your attention, has to do with if you decide to change the weights, the domains and the indicators, you always need to think through the implications of that, again, from a policy perspective. There are instances where countries have changed the national MPI from the global 3 domains to 4 domains. And unfortunately, in the attempt of doing that, it has not reflected the indicators that goes into the domain. So once you add another domain, and you have 4 of them, that domain alone has a weight of 25%. But if the other 3 domains that are consistent with the global MPI has 3 indicators each, but the one that you've introduced has just 1 indicator, it means that 1 indicator carries a weight of 25%. So these are some of the reflections that I think going forward, we should think about how we make the MPI more comparable to the global MPI. The last issue that I want to bring to our attention is we are in an era where we're talking about the beyond GDP agenda. Most of us were in that meeting yesterday, and I'm calling on National Statistical Office to take ownership of the different poverty measures. Time will not allow me to go through it, but I can share a simple slide with you where at the Africa Center for Statistics, we've taken 5 different measures of well-being, specifically monetary poverty, annualized, that is being produced by the World Bank, the global MPI, the Human Development Index, the GDP per capita, and the Happiness Index. Once you do this exercise, you realize that using GDP per capita as the benchmark, If you introduce the other multidimensional poverty indices, you lose about 50% of the top 20 countries. And of the top 20 countries that are least poor, you have 6 that are appearing consistently across the 5 measures. And from the perspective of happiness index, we see about 6 countries that happens for the first time. What did strike us when we saw that analysis was the fact that countries like Libya and other war-torn countries, countries that have political instability, have high rankings on the happiness index. As National Statistical Offices, if we want the numbers to be relatable to us, we need to think about how policymakers will choose and pick which measure of well-being suits their agenda. And I'm hoping that this conversation will bring to the fore some of these nuances to enable us enhance an optimal use of the MPI. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Samuel, for reminding us really of the need to take the MPI in a comparative perspective and then to think through the implications of the relationship between the weights and the poverty cutoff. We are pressed a little bit for time, and so as I mentioned, the timekeeper will ring 1 bell at 3 minutes and 1 at 4, and please stop with the 2 dings. And I'm delighted to call first on Bouzid Nsiri, the Director General of the National Institute of Statistics in Tunisia. You have the floor.
Colleague, it's a great pleasure to share with you Tunisia's experience in advancing national poverty measurement within the framework promoted by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network with the technical support of Oxford Poverty and the Human Development Initiative at the University of Oxford. For Tunisia, measuring poverty beyond income is essential to designing more targeted, equitable, and evidence-based public policies. Traditionally, Tunisia relied on a monetary poverty measure. However, monetary indicators alone do not fully capture inequalities in access to education, health, and housing, regional disparities, vulnerabilities affecting children and women. Now, monetary deprivation linked to social exclusion. The Multidimensional Poverty Index provides a more comprehensive picture aligned with the SDG 1 and national development priorities. Tunisia's experience has been built to 3 pillars. Firstly, strong institutional leadership. In fact, the National Statistical Office led the process in collaboration with the sector ministries to ensure ownership and policy relevance. Second, data integration and methodological rigor. Use of household service and administrative data, adapting it of a global MPA methodology and to national priorities, context-specific indicators reflecting Tunisian realities. Third, capacity building and international cooperation, technical exchange, cooperation with different partner experts, and strong partnership with technical and financial partnership, particularly UNDP, UNICEF, and OFI. The Tunisian MPI has identified pockets of severe deprivation not visible in income poverty data, highlighted strong regional disparities between coastal and interior regions, supported better targeting of social protection program, informed a national development strategy and poverty reduction policies. Most importantly, it strengthened the dialogue between statisticians and policy makers. Despite progress, several challenges remain, ensuring regular and timely data production, harmonizing the administrative and survey data, institutional coordination across ministry, communicate MPI results effectively to policy makers, securing sustainable funding. Tunisian experience shows that national ownership is essential. MPI must be policy driven, not only technical sound. Multidimensional poverty measurement strengthened planning beyond GDP. Finally, we can say that multidimensional poverty measurement is not just a statistical exercise, it's a tool for social justice, equity, and accountability. Tunisia remains committed to work with different all partners to advance evidence-based policy making and achieve the sustainable development goal. And thank you.
Thank you so much for really reminding us of the need for a dialogue between statistics with its rigor and policy with its salience, the need for national ownership and a tool of justice, equity, and accountability. So that's really a tool of prioritization, acceleration. Thank you so much. We now move to Zanzibar, and I'm delighted to welcome Salum Kasim Ali, the Chief Government Statistician from the Office of the Chief Government Statistics in Zanzibar. You have your
Thank you,
presentation.
moderator. To be fine for my time, allow me to go straight away to the presentation. Tanzania has been made long history on poverty measurement dating back 1991, primarily using monetary measurement, approaching that to provide a poverty estimate in the country. Household budget survey was being used as a data source. Over the past years, poverty level using monetary measurement shows significant decline from 38.6% in 1991 to 26.4% to 2017. During the same period, extremely food poverty fell from 21% to 8%. Despite this progressive disparity across the region and across the rural and urban rural area, highlighted has been limited on relying on solely on monitoring indicators. This experience reinforced understanding that the poverty in Tanzania has multiple dimensions involving depriving in healthy education, financial inclusion, living standard, and social security, among others. In 2022, the first history, Tanzania developed the first official NPI using 2027 household budget survey. NPI was designed to assess multidimensional poverty level in the country. Contest is sharpener on the policy and eradicating the poverty. In line with that, indices was designed to complement the mental poverty by providing access depriving on basic survival needs. NPI dimension indicator were carefully designed to align with the national priority to articulate in 35 years for national planning, and which is finally implemented in Tanzania for 2025 Vision 2050 and Vision 2050. As a policy tools, the NPI used it to comprehend policy tools and assist the government of Tanzania coordinating social policies and targeting the poorest groups and allocated social budgets. We have included indicators related to the education, water, financial access, using and housing, and NPIs make visible improvement in these areas directly. As of social statistics, official statistics, and national NPIs measure health, among others, to monitor and evaluate performance of government poverty reduction initiative through Tanzania Development Plan 2030, 2050, and the 2030 for Sustainable Development Goals. What mechanism ensure that MPI does data effectively use to inform national strategies such as a cross-sectional planning, a budget allocation, and evidence-based poverty reduction. NBS and mandated collect, produce, disseminate official statistics while playing a key role of coordinating the national statistics system in Tanzania. The structure of government mechanism was established during the development of Tanzania mainland NPI, including Tanzania National Technical Working Group and National Statistics Steering Committee. This institutional arrangement has been ensured the national ownership of technical rigor, policy relevance on NPI. NPI indicators were designed to map direct inform national planning framework, in particular the 5-year development plan, cross-sectional area, planning across ministries, several ministries, and on board such as NPI Act as a multi-sectoral policy coordinating tool that bring together key stakeholder design for coordinating intervention gear to address multiple dimensions. However, MPI key information and social progressive for the beyond of GDP. In closing, Tanzania adoption national multi-dimension poverty index marks strategy or milestone from measuring poverty and actively using statistics for policy action. It's strengthening evidence-based planning, multi-sectoral coordination, and inclusive development in line with Vision 2050. remain committed to continue to recognize multidimensional poverty, measuring as the official statistics of policy actions and in line with the Tanzania Development Vision 2050 and accelerating multidimensional poverty. In addition, we intend to develop a standard set of questions to include the national survey for facilitating measurement of NPI over the time. This will enable monitoring dimension indicators chosen for the country over the time. In this regard, having NPI for the time during the implementation of I thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful spread of Tanzania's history from 1991 to present with monetary, and then MPI as a complement to monetary. And then the uses, particularly, I was interested in targeting for social protection, targeting the poorest, using it for budgeting, and your stress on action. So thank you so much. I'm delighted now to turn to Indonesia with Dato' Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti, the Director General of the BPS, the Department of Statistics in Indonesia. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It is a pleasure for us to be and to attend in this discussion because from this discussion, Indonesia can learn a lot from other countries who's already launched officially the MPI, such as Malaysia. And we would also learn from other countries who has already launched and released the MPI as an official statistics. For Indonesia, we believe that multidimensional poverty or MPI is actually the complementary to the monetary poverty. As you know that by having multidimensional poverty, and then it is a capability for us to measure the deprivation, which is more comprehensive than only for monetary. And we understand that poverty is more than income. Poverty also have to be able to measure about access, resilience, and human capital matters. And of course that by having MPI, we are actually to support the SDGs target, especially SDGs 1.2, poverty in all its dimensions. And for your information, Indonesia also committed to achieve SDGs by 2030. What is the possible national MPI design for Indonesia? Of course, for Indonesia, it is really relevant to the policy in Indonesia, especially to reduce poverty, not only by monetary, but in the multidimensional poverty in Indonesia. And currently, we are trying to exercise and to provide an experimental MPI with the dimension of three, which is health, education, and standard of living, with that three pillars. And currently, we have such as 9 indicators of three pillars. For health deprivation, we're trying to use nutrition, sanitation, and health insurance. And for the pillar of education deprivation, we use school participation and learning support. And for standard of living, we have, in the meantime, we have 4 indicators such as housing, water, electricity, and clean cooking. And again, we are still review these indicators. We would like to learn from other countries' experiences, whether these indicators really enough to capture the condition of multidimensional poverty in Indonesia. We are also thinking about to add some other indication that can also represent a standard of living such as decent work, and also probably informalities and other indicators who is actually really relevant to reduce the multidimensional poverty in Indonesia. And this is why Indonesia would like to learn from other country experiences in how can we really develop relevant indicators for multidimensional poverty index, which is relevant to Indonesian condition. Concerns from Indonesia is about consistency across the time and region, because as you know that Indonesia is, when we are going to release an official statistics, of course we are not really, we will not only release the national indicators. We also need to release for provincial level indicators, and also for not only until provinces, but also until municipalities, because we have around 514 municipalities in Indonesia and 38 provinces. So meaning that each province and each municipality have developed the MPI as well, not only in the national level. So consistency, the availability of indicators until the municipalities level is also one of the consideration and challenges that Indonesia have to think about very carefully. BPS Statistics Indonesia has started to develop the multidimensional poverty index calculation since 2019, and then now we have a time series available as an experimental statistics from 2019 to 2022. So again, as I mentioned before, that we are still reviewing these experimental statistics, and the ongoing effort to restore and to learn from other countries are still being in place. So we are committed sometime that we can launch the MPI officially. Of course, again, my last conclusion from this is, again, thank you for inviting Indonesia to this important discussion and session, because we believe that MPI will provide a clearer picture of poverty beyond income, and national MPI design should prioritize policy relevance and clarity and comparability between countries, but not only between countries, comparability between our provincial level and also our municipality levels. So meaning that methodological safeguard, methodological perfection, and is very essential. Because once we release this MPI, that we have to build the trust from the people of Indonesia, because we have to safeguard our credibility. So again, collaboration and learning from other country experiences is believed to accelerate our learning process. And then if there is an opportunity for having a capacity building, probably from UN or from other development partners and from other countries, we will be very happy to have that collaboration, and we would like to learn a lot, and we would like to have sharing experiences. And last but not least, that we really welcome for any opportunity to have capacity building to support Indonesia to review this MPI. Thank you.
Thank you so much, not only for naming SDG 1.2 and showing the MPI in progress, but really for your commitment to go into depth and to do an MPI that truly will serve the country. Happily on the dais, we have Samuel and Claudia Maldonado, both of whom have experience with very local MPIs. And in our South-South network, we do have the structure of all of the MPIs that are currently released in about 56 countries with their indicators and dimensions. So the South-South network could be a resource. And finally, we do have a summer school from the 20th to the 31st of July in Costa Rica in English for those statisticians who wish to learn the technology in more detail, and capacity building would be a joy. So thank you so much. We now turn to Latin America and to Paraguay with Ivan Ojeda, the director of the National Institute of Statistics. Ivan will speak in Spanish, and Ana or I will do a quick translation. So we will stay within the 4 minutes, but between the two languages. Ivan, 2 minutitos.
Thank you so much. Hola. Okay. Perfecto, muy buenos días a todos, muchas gracias por el espacio. En Paraguay se mide el índice de pobreza multidimensional desde el año 2021 con el apoyo de OFI y un comité de pobreza independiente en donde se trabajó la medida. La fuente principal de información es la encuesta permanente a hogares. En el Paraguay se miden en el IPM 4 dimensiones: trabajo, vivienda, salud y educación, y son 15 las carencias que están por debajo. Para el año 2024, el índice de pobreza multidimensional nacional tuvo una incidencia del 15%, 6% en zonas urbanas y también 31% en zonas rurales. Hoy el IPM es la medida por excelencia elegida para las políticas públicas en el Paraguay en lo que tiene que ver con la reducción de la pobreza. Los desafíos son construir un mapa distrital de la pobreza multidimensional a partir del censo y la encuesta permanente a hogares, y también una revisión permanente para incluir nuevas dimensiones y también carencias. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. So Paraguay launched their official MPI in 2021 with an independent permanent committee of statistics. It's based on the permanent household survey with 4 dimensions, and health, education, living standards, and work, and 15 indicators. In 2024, 15% of people were poor, 6% in urban areas, and 31% in rural areas. But the most important thing about Paraguay's MPI is that it is the chosen indicator to shape poverty reduction policies. In terms of the statistical office, they are working to construct district maps of the MPI using the population and housing census, and also revising their MPI. And a number of countries have that started their MPIs in 2009 or 10 or 11 are revising their MPIs to update the indicators to the more current aspirations. So thank you so much, Ivan, for all of your energy. And there is truly a treasure trove of information on policy uses of MPI in Paraguay. We at OFI are trying to do in-depth case studies with Ivan about the nexus between statistics and policy. Thank you. So now we go to Mauritius, and I'm delighted to welcome Mukesh Dawunot, the Director of Statistics Mauritius. You have the dice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will go directly to not what's the advantage of monetary and non-monetary poverty. So skipping that, I will just say how we are constructing our national MPI. So that would be, we wanted to have the consultations, the agreement of all stakeholders. We had the SADC is funding a technical assistance, and OFI is helping us to compile our national MPI. In the first phase in October last year, we had consultations with parliamentarians, NGOs, trade unions, ministries, etc., to more or less to gather a wish list of indicators that might identify poverty. And then from that, we went to see which data source are we going to use. which is a data source. So if we go to our household budget surveys every 5 years, continuous multipurpose household surveys every month, and then you have the population and housing census that is every 10 years. But based on the indicators, the dimensions that we wanted to construct, and that was only the population census could give that type of details. And also we can have that the NPI we can compile at the local levels, for example, at the municipal or village council areas level. So it was very, we can compile a very detailed one going to the local level. So during the mission we had last 2 weeks, we finalized more or less the compilation. We already have an MPI, but we are still consulting. Now the first phase consultation was a wish list. The second phase was from the results. We already have the NPI results from the housing and population census. We are still consulting with the parliamentarians, the NGOs, we held workshops, etc., to finalize or fine-tune the indicators. Right now we have working on 4 dimensions. We have work, health, education, and standard of living. And we have around 15 indicators that we can derive from that. So that is ongoing, and most probably during the end of March, we might be publishing it. And that helps to OFI and SADC. So some questions that or comments that I have is that in terms of comparability, in terms of having the periodicity of the publication of MPI, we have used the population and housing census. So that is every 10 years. If someone asks me some numbers tomorrow or the next year, how are we monitoring? And the electoral period is normally, they are elected for every 5 years. We want to have more recent or more frequent data. Can we use our other surveys? Can we have dedicated surveys? So these are all questions that we are asking so that we can compile on a more frequent basis the MPI. So I don't know where we'll go, but just for us, it was very important, the consultation approach to identify so that we can have the buy-in. And just to tell you, we had a workshop on with the NGOs on Thursday last. I was not there, I was here. So, but at least it went well. And it was the NGOs who are promoting the MPI now, because they like the way we are defining poverty or having the results. So they are very happy, and they are our advocates. They will advocate for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a lucid presentation of how MPI development is going step by step, starting in the population and housing census. And you are between 2 people on either side of you, someone who can advise you about censuses and surveys and putting questions into other surveys. So you are seated very strategically today, but also Mauritius as a small island developing state, and Samoa cannot be with us. But there is now an increasing number of those countries that have MPIs with the distinctive indicator needs of those contexts. And we're delighted by that. Now we're very happy to move on to Mongolia with Batava Batmunk, the chairman of the National Statistics Office, Mongolia. You have the dice.
Thank you, Sabina. So good afternoon, colleagues. So no, we haven't adopted the national MPI yet, but I would like to share our perspective in terms of why we are, trying to adopt the MPI at the national level and how we are doing it, and then what could be the benefit and then challenges that we could be facing. So we all know the advantage of the MPI is it gives us more information about the non-monetary aspects of the poverty and then root causes. In Mongolia, we've been estimating the consumption poverty since early 2000 with the technical support from the World Bank. And since 2019, we've been trying to build up our national MPI. And last year, with the support from the UNDP and then technical support from the OPHI, we have drafted our national MPI, which we are planning to make it official starting from next year. And I think one of the advantage over the MPI over the consumption poverty is it's more stable. I think it's very important for countries like Mongolia, whose economy is very dependent on the commodity exports, whose economy is prone to commodity boom and bust cycles and price fluctuations. So I think that's one of the decisions that we think it's good to adopt national MPI. In drafting national MPI, like our colleague from the Mauritius said, we established a working group involving all the line ministries and relevant policymakers, and we held several rounds of consultations with them. And we developed a draft MPI with 4 dimensions and 15 indicators. But still, I think the main problem or the difficulty we are facing is the acceptance of all the indicators in the MPI. Especially, we are still facing questions from the line ministries, especially on the nomad population, because we have a significant number of nomadic populations who move around the country year-round. And one of the indicators we have in the MPI is the housing infrastructure, where traditionally it's very difficult to build, this sanitary infrastructure in the country. And I think the process of adopting the national MPI with the good consultation and comprehensive consultation is very important, because during the consultation period, we faced a lot of questions and conceptual debates from these line ministries and the NGOs. So we'll be happy to hear a lot about this, the consultations and how you get your MPIs accepted by the other agencies, so that we can use it as a policy proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on the pilot MPI. We look forward to the official MPI next year, but I must say the Mongolia statistical team is one of OFI's favorites. Such a competent and hardworking team. Thank you for bringing up the nomadic populations. That also came up, for example, in Somalia's MPI and some others, special groups where you need to have slightly different response codes to permit different definitions of adequate, in this case, housing. But that is interesting. But especially thank you for the emphasis from Malaysia till Mongolia on the whole of government approach involving all the line ministries, and on consultations involving civil society, perhaps academics, perhaps businesses and private sector. That's been pivotal in many of your presentations, and certainly is something that means that when the MPI is launched and released, then different actors can come in and own it. And there's been also an emphasis on national ownership. So that does sound like a conversation that can be deepened, but that is a priority in so many places. So I'm delighted now that we go to Moldova and we learn from Oleg Kara, the Director General of the National Bureau of Statistics in Moldova.
Thank you, Sabina. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation to share Moldovan experience in measuring poverty and to learn more about international best practices. Traditionally, poverty measurement in Moldova relied primarily on monetary metrics using absolute poverty indicators. These measures remain essential. However, policymakers, researchers, civil society increasingly demanded a more comprehensive understanding of deprivation beyond monetary terms. In response, starting in 2016, a structured process was launched to study and implement a national multidimensional poverty index. Through an extensive consultation process, poverty and inclusiveness were discussed, prioritized, and grouped into 10 socioeconomic dimensions. After that, it was reviewed. Subsequently, work continued with the development of a national MPI methodology. So we think that it's key to the methodology to be developed and to be discussed, agreed, and approved well in advance before presenting official figures on MPIs. We use this methodology based on LKF Foster method and using annual data from the National Household Budget Survey. So we have a quota survey. In 2022, a draft methodology had been developed and widely discussed. In 2024, the finalized methodology, together with experimental calculations and the first analytical reports on MPI, based on 22 data, were presented, discussed, and agreed upon with key stakeholders. Following this process, MPI methodology was formally approved and made public. Starting in 2025, we launched with the MPI as official statistics. The national MPI enables comprehensive analysis of poverty across 4 key dimensions: health, education, living standards, and employment, operationalized through 11 specific indicators. Importantly, it allows disaggregation by area, residence, statistical region, sex, age group, and household type. Thus, the information derived from the MPI allows to identify categories of deprived and vulnerable populations, areas of allocating resources where they will have the greatest impact, coordinate multi-sectoral interventions, adjusting evidence-based policies. The MPI strengthens Moldova's ability to monitor progress in line with the 2030 agenda. A combined analysis of monetary and multidimensional poverty provides a far more accurate diagnostic of vulnerability and therefore better guidance for policy responses. We also continue methodological development. In 2025, the National Bureau of Statistics, upon the request from the government, began experimental calculations of relative poverty, in addition to absolute poverty and MPI, aligned with approaches adopted by the European Union. In addition, we recently formalized the working group of living standards measurement, represented largely by public institutions, academia, NGOs. This is led by NBS. This further strengthened the national institutional and analytical framework for poverty management. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the strong partnership that supported this process, particularly the United Nations Development Programme in Moldova, the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, as well as national partners whose cooperation ensured the methodology was tailored to Moldova's needs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for sharing and for emphasizing many things, but I was particularly interested in the disaggregation and the different groups that you disaggregate by that are distinctive of others and how important that is, and also of the combined analysis of monetary and multidimensional, because both of them together provide more insights than one alone, and we're very happy with that. And we turn now to Claudia Maldonado, the Coordinator of Evaluation and Policy in the National System of Statistical and Geographical Information, which is INEGI, which is their equivalent of their NSO in Mexico. And Mexico was the first country in the world in 2009 to launch an MPI. So Claudia.
Thank you so much, Sabina. Well, the first thing I want to say is that I strongly believe that MPIs and multidimensional poverty measures are already one step ahead in the Beyond GDP agenda. And for this reason, this space and this discussion is very timely and very important. Like Sabina mentioned, Mexico was a pioneer in adopting these multidimensional poverty measures. And what I want to share with you, it was not only a pioneer, it is a multidimensional poverty measure that has survived political backlash and even constitutional amendments affecting the independent agency that originally provided this measure. So with this political economy resilience story in mind, I want to show you, to share with you 5 principles that I think help explain the prevalence, the credibility, and the relevance of our multidimensional poverty measure for policy making, but also for wider public policy debate. The first element in this almost 2-decade story, because it started with the General Law of Social Development in 2004, is that in Mexico we have a very clear mandate. Mexico not only adopted this measure as an official poverty measure, This is also embedded as a mandatory function of monitoring and evaluation, of budgeting, of planning, and of policy design for the 3 levels of government. We have a measure that is updated regularly for the national, the province, and the municipal level. So these 3 levels of disaggregation that are timely and that are reasonably expected shape the ability of policymakers to include it in policy decision making and at the 3 levels of government. The second element is technical credibility. This is anchored in the social rights in the Mexican Constitution, but it was a product of a very open and rigorous debate with local, national experts and international experts trying to provide for a rigorous measurement that was conceptually coherent and with many measures that make it credible. Not only the information source that it has always been INEGI's national service, but also with the process of measurement and the way it is vastly publicized with replicability measures and open government principles. The third element is timeliness and added value. This is not only anchored in health, education, social security, nutrition, and housing as core social rights in the Constitution. The measures respond to prevalent definitions of what the minimum thresholds for rights should be. And this is a function of local political decision making, but also a function of the wider international human rights discussion on the minimum thresholds that are needed in these measures. Like I mentioned, we have a municipal level multidimensional poverty measure, which is a very important empirical challenge, but that we have been managing to address, talking to cutting-edge statisticians and using very innovative small areas estimation techniques. The fourth element is multi-actor appropriation. This is a measure that is actively used in accountability by civil society, by NGOs, and even by private actors as a core anchor for social policy development and monitoring. And the fifth one is permanent outreach. These measures have to be credible, they have to be transparent, they have to be methodologically rigorous. But if they are not appropriated as a public good for policy decision making and for public debate, they remain a technocratic instrument somewhere in a statistical office. And for this, from the standpoint of INEGI, I am very proud to tell you that because of the important territorial presence of INEGI in every corner of the country, we are now able to have a stronger outreach strategy, trying to make people able to understand, assimilate, and appropriate this measure, not only as a monitoring and evaluation instrument, but also as a public good instrument for democratic debate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia. And you brought on the table some very important points about political economy. We are not immune. And maybe not, I know in our South-South network off the record, these things are discussed. There's a need for legal protection of independence and autonomy, but it does come under threat. And thinking, anticipating, and supporting each other in those cases is very important. And communication. I remember when Mexico launched the institution at the time, Coneval went to every state of Mexico. India went to every state and union territory. I believe in Ghana, they also have done, and others of you. And I think communicating nationally and at subnational level directly is really one of the energizers of uptake and policy used by MPI and the permanent outreach to involve students, to involve NGOs and local associations. So thank you so much for that vision through experience of Mexico. Before I turn to Christian Oldeges, Bangladesh was not able to come, as some statistical offices were not able to come, and it's 1 a.m. in Bangladesh, but I'm delighted that very briefly we are going to have an intervention from Alamgir Hussain on behalf of the Director General of BBS in Bangladesh. Alamgir, you have the screen.
Thank you, Savina, for giving me the floor. I am very delighted to that we are getting insights from the different countries, how they are adopting the MPI, and we are very happy to inform you that Bangladesh has launched its first time the national MPI in last July in 2025. No, the national MPI also simultaneously incorporated the child-focused MPI side by side with the national MPI. So in the national MPI, we have incorporated 3 dimensions. But for the child-focused MPI, you have incorporated another additional dimension for child-focused indicators. You'll be happy to know that we have conducted the multiple indicator cluster survey last year, and now we are planning to measure the second round of the MPI. But you are aware that Bangladesh has got a new government, and we are trying to tailor the MPI according to the election manifesto of the new government. Hopefully, this year we will be able to measure our second round of the MPI, and that will be published very soon. We are expecting support from the particularly OFI, and of course the UNICEF. They have our partner during the last round of the MPI measurement. Hopefully, you will get the second round of the MPI from the Bangladesh very soon for the National Statistics Office of Bangladesh. You'll be happy to know that in Bangladesh, the National Statistics Office, the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, along with the GED, General Economic Division of Planning Commission, and other key partners and stakeholders are involved in the measurement process, and we will continue the partnership in future. Thank you for giving me the floor, and I'm very sorry to not being in person with the with this UNSC, but Bangladesh will be with all of you for accelerating the process. Thank you, Sabina.
Thank you so much, Alamgir, and thank you for staying up so late. And for reminding us that not only did Bangladesh launch a national MPI, but a child-focused MPI. And a number of countries now have individual child MPIs, from Sri Lanka to Nigeria, which are aligned with the national MPI. Every child who's poor by the national MPI is poor by the child MPI, but it includes additional indicators across the life cycle of childhood to have a deep dive into their situation. And thank you also for reminding us of the role that statisticians have when new governments come in. You can brief the new governments, you can energize them about poverty and how they can use the MPIs. And the statistical offices really have a key role of continuity, particularly in terms of policy uptake. So thank you for that. I'd like to recognize CAPMAS in Egypt, because again, this is a very strong statistical office that launched a very innovative MPI, and also is considering how the MPI structure can be used for household targeting, something that a number of countries are working now with the National Social Registries or the COBEN or other data sources that are used for household targeting to complement the conditional cash transfers with the social protection plus interventions. We have our final speaker, and I'm delighted to recognize Christian Oldiges, who's the Chief of Social Policy in the Economic Commission for Africa. Chris.
Thank you, Sabina. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, thank you for staying all this time, and I hope we have a little discussion afterwards. I want to start with a small picture. In 2026, we think we know the face of poverty. We, as either ministers or directors of statistics, professors, academics, or UN employees, or so-called experts. Our experience tells us there is probably a young woman who is probably uneducated. She might not get a permanent job, or she may be living in a rural area. Her only brother is no longer at home and might be caught up in a regional conflict. She may have lost her shelter in a recent mudslide. She has been exposed to heavy floods. She may have probably been a child bride. And her parents died when she was just 5 years old. All of them are the face of poverty, but they are not necessarily the same person. Because poverty is multidimensional, and it goes in many forms. Some can overcome it on their own, while others are left behind. So,
If we only categorize poverty as a gender issue or rural-urban issue or youth unemployment issue, we struggle to bring together the data that shows the multiple deprivations and shocks people face at the same time. What is needed are tools and nuanced tools that help us retrieve comprehensive information on the realities of life. At our Ministries of Planning or Finance, we do not need statistics that exist in silos, but statistics that are integrated. At the ECA, we are aiming to provide just that. And that is the co-host of today, the Economic Commission for Africa, Samuel, introduced us. A policy interface that connects the dots between statistics on multidimensional poverty and the various shocks that people face at the same time. Shocks of different kinds, such as weather shocks, different types of conflict or crime, or migration flows. We integrate and visualize MPI statistics at the most local level with such overlapping shocks, all of which are geolocated and time-stamped, providing holistic information at a glance to policymakers. And yes, such data are available, often for free. Our offer to member states is to tailor this interface to their own context and with their own data, so it becomes a policy and governance tool. For this, the following is required by statistics, bureaus, and/or ministries of finance or planning. First, as we heard today, a national MPI that can be disaggregated. Some countries like Ghana, Angola, and Djibouti are frontrunners in having or aiming to have a census MPI, allowing them to map each locality and see the detailed MPI profiles for each locality. Second, a national MPI that is regularly updated to allow for time trend analysis. Thirdly, geolocated data on shocks and also on economic activities, such as employment hubs and firms that can be mapped over every locality. Ideally, and that's the last one, administrative data on expenditures, could be social expenditures or employment programs at the most local level. So the interface then becomes a planning and monitoring tool. Several countries have requested our support to develop just this, with the aim to improve social protection policies that go beyond cash, but include public works, investments in schools, health, and sanitation infrastructure, all dependent on the context. Countries aim to use such an interface to develop targeted and timely employment programs. At ECA, we hope that in this way we can provide meaningful and concrete support to member states and eventually scale it to different regions. And by doing so, referring to yesterday's Beyond GDP discussions, we hope to be making the invisible visible and to give a voice to the voiceless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for bringing our need, like others have done, to our eyes to the need to look at the overlaps between geospatially, between where is poverty the poorest and where has there been conflict at the same time, where has there been a cyclone, a flood, a drought, high air pollution at the same time, where has there been out or in migration. So these are very important but feasible overlays, and the data visualization tool that ECA is working on, I think, will become a standard for the world. And I should also say that with UNDP, OFI have the privilege to compute a global multidimensional poverty index covering 109 countries and 6.3 billion people. And this year we overlaid that with 4 environmental or climate hazards. And we found that of the 1.1 billion people who were multidimensionally poor, 80%, 887, experienced one or more of these climate hazards in the same year in which they were poor. And last year we overlaid conflict with the global MPI. And so the more we can understand the 360-degree lived experience of poverty in context, the more we will be able to, again, in a time of fiscal constraint, think of the most effective ways to address those deprivations. Friends, we're slightly over time, but this has been a wonderful, wonderful exchange. I hope that anyone who can stay is welcome to stay to continue the conversation. I would request the speakers perhaps to gather for a family photo immediately before we disperse. And then I really thank each and every one of you for coming. We do hope to continue in contact. And we hope that going forward, when we think about the 5 years until 2030 and the period after 2030, this community will really raise and find a voice in how to call to have global and national, multidimensional and monetary poverty measures work together to give the information required, not to overwhelm people with a flurry of statistics, but to give some high impact headlines that can be used for policy. Thank you all so very much, and thank you to UNECA and Samuel for hosting this event. We're very grateful to all of you.
Account.